This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo, giving you the inside track on all the big talking points from Anfield.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Blood Red podcast, live and in person at the lovely Lovelocks Cafe. Sean Bradbury hosting today, making my debut in this environment, which I'm very pleased to do. Got two very special guests with me, unfortunately not Fabinho's two French Bulldogs who couldn't meet their demands, but we've got two of the Echo's finest, which is Theo Squires and Kiefer MacDonald. We'll start at the end, which is the end of Jordan Henderson after 12 years at Liverpool, and it's inevitably the first place we come to. Theo, go to you first on this, and just want to really get a sense of what you think of how history will judge him. I mean, it's a strange one, this, isn't it? So at the time of recording, we haven't had confirmation from Liverpool or Al Ettifaq that Henderson is actually going, but we have seen him kicking a ball or trying to kick a ball in a rondo that didn't look the best standard, I'm not going to lie, with his new teammates in Croatia. I saw one person on Twitter sum it up last night and say, you know, he's a legend, but he's messed up the final act of his own play. And I think that's quite an accurate way of looking at it personally. But how do you see this, Theo? I mean, I feel like now on this pod, we should be talking about Henderson's best moments, but it doesn't feel like that is the right place to start, really. It feels like a bizarre and sour ending to his time at Anfield.
Yeah, agree with that completely. Like, the way this transfer has been handled is a shambles. And the only issue is we don't know who's to blame for that. We don't know what is going on behind the scenes for there to be delays left and right, who's pushing for what. Like, there's been whispers that Henderson initially rejected it and then Gerrard came in and changed his mind. But at the end of the day, the transfer has not happened yet he has done his big farewell video on Instagram. There's been footage of him training out there with them. Something's not quite matched up, and I know there's going to be backlash to it in terms of whether he's a hypocrite or just let him go and get his money. Like, if anyone was offered that much money to go and have their fun in the sun, you don't begrudge him that. But Henderson, he is held to higher standards. Like it or not, he has put himself forward as this political speaker for so many issues, and he's got to be held to that higher standard. He's a Liverpool captain as well. Like, I know it's been pointed out on social media, if he hadn't signed that new contract 2 years ago, he goes on a free transfer this summer with Firmino, with Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Milner, and he's an absolute club legend. He gets his big farewell at Anfield, then he goes and plays in that Southampton game, potentially gets a testimonial. We're talking about that because he's been at the club so long, and there's all that love. And while there'd still be those questions of, is Saudi Arabia really the right move for you with all the politics behind it, you wouldn't begrudge it the same way you are now. This transfer has completely disrupted Liverpool's summer, their pre-season planning. We can take positives out of it. You're getting more money than you'd have thought for a player who's coming towards the end of his career. You can reinvest that in the squad. But this is not a transfer that they've been planning for months. It's not as though they knew in April, May, Henderson's going to go. If you'd said to him, you could have gone to Saudi Arabia back then and you had no money in there, he's not interested in that transfer. He's looking at playing for England in the Euros next summer. Like, Milner's just gone to Brighton. If there was Premier League interest and he wanted to go, he could have gone there. His head's been turned by the money. Like I said, it's a great wage for him, but it just doesn't feel the right way for a Liverpool captain to leave. Like, when Gerrard left, it was the end of his contract, 35, he wanted to go and play more football, which Henderson's doing, but it still feels like there's more life left in him. He's got another 2 years. He should be maybe embracing the Milner role, so to speak, because you're still going to play a hell of a lot of football and go through so many Liverpool captains over the years, whether it's like the ones the club have decided to get rid of, your Paul Inces, your Jamie Redknapps, your Robbie Fowlers. Before that, or like, you're just too old, like John Barnes, Ian Rush. It's always been Liverpool have made that decision. It's not been the players gone prematurely. They've all got so much service out of them. Liverpool got so much service out of Henderson. But for him to go like this, almost out the back door, so it's like not really something you want to embrace and look at. I wasn't interested in watching his farewell video. I don't care what he's saying about how great Liverpool was. We know how great Liverpool was. We know you've won absolutely everything. So why go on the eve of the new season when you're supposed to be leading them through towards that next chapter? Klopp signed his new contract to give this transition to the next manager. So you've got this next great Liverpool side. Henderson should be part of that as the backroom side. You can take positives out of it, but it's still very murky waters this transfer has been completed in. And when you're seeing him saying bye before it's even done, training with his new teammates before it's even done, yeah, there's going to be a lot that's going to come out, I think, behind the scenes in the future, whether that's him in paperback sales for a next book or when he comes and does Legends matches. You want the truth here. We don't want, it was great winning the Champions League, it was great winning the Premier League. We've heard all this. We want Jordan Henderson to come out and say, right, you're going to be disappointed because I've made this decision, this is why, and then have a message for the LGBT community and everyone else that feels let down by him. Still a Liverpool legend, But at the moment, this is the lasting image. Going out, not on a high, but on this muddied low.
Keith, I think Theo summed it up superbly there, but going back to the weepy video that Henderson's released, we were predicting which music was going to be in the background, and sadly no Adele and Coldplay as we thought there would be. He threw the Kanye interlude in there, bit of All the Lights, which is a slight surprise. But yeah, as I think Theo's spoken well and summed up why this just is unexpected, is odd. It's taken so many twists and turns that just feel unbecoming of how a captain should leave. I mean, what's your general assessment of this and how it's played out over the last few weeks?
I think it's such a huge shame. I think whenever you envision Jordan Henderson's time at Liverpool coming to an end, 12 years, 13 years, 14 years, whenever he was going to depart, I always thought he'd be on the same level of a Jamie Carragher or Steven Gerrard. You're talking about full Anfields, his kids by his side, his family there on the side of the pitch, with a sold-out Anfield, a mosaic there with his, Jordan Henderson 14, whatever. And, he really gets to kind of savour that moment and appreciate it. And let's be real, this is a guy who's faced, certainly in my lifetime, I can't think of a player who's divided opinion like Jordan Henderson has. And even, in recent years after winning the Champions League and the Premier League, he still faced criticism and maybe people still haven't been convinced by him. I mean, I saw a bizarre tweet the other day that said that he was at a technical obstacle in Klopp's plans, which is bizarre considering, he's captained Liverpool to 3 Champions League finals, nearly a quadruple, guided them to a first league title in 30 years, the 6th Champions League. I mean, the list goes on. And, I mean, with the Fabinho deal, I think everyone could maybe see it coming. There was, he's a sellable asset. With Henderson, everything that he said towards the end of last season about the fight and kind of going again, and, that getting that hunger back, it just doesn't add up. And that's before you even include any of the political stuff that he's been involved in the campaigning, because there's going to be people listening to this now who aren't interested in that side of football, and they're purely, their intake is the 90 minutes on a Saturday, and that's completely fair enough. But to a lot of people like us, we're interested in the wider impact it has on society. And for a time, Jordan Henderson was someone Liverpool fans and I'd like to think football fans around the country, certainly during the pandemic, was someone they could be proud of. He set up the players' NHS campaign, didn't he? Kind of went back and forth with Matt Hancock during that, really devastating, couple of months we had in 2020. And he was a real leader, and all the kind of talk about him that was, he was a player you could be proud of, and you could be, in the same way that Manchester United fans will look at Marcus Rashford as someone who embodies what it is to be Liverpool and, gets the culture and gets the values of the city. But it almost feels like he's just thrown that in the bin, and it's such a huge shame because, as I say, he's fought this battle for 12 years. He's fought against the tide of winning Liverpool supporters over, and it now feels like he's gone and scored, a catastrophic own goal, and it's like, all for what? Because, I say I understand. I mean, this is a man who's going to be earning at Liverpool $5 million a year, and I've heard a lot of people say it's life-changing money, but it's not as if he's been working in Aldi on £9 an hour, for the past 10 years. This is, as I say, a bloke who's an international footballer, 70-odd caps for England, 3 Champions League finals. He is a multi-millionaire already. He will have passive income until the day he dies. So this idea that, this lad who comes from a working-class background in Sunderland is now going to get some final paycheck, I just don't really buy it. And the thing as well is, yes, Liverpool are kind of undergoing this huge rebuild this summer, and they're not in the Champions League. They might not compete with City this year, but I mean, James Milner at 33 played 45 games for Liverpool. They went on to win the Champions League. The year later, he wins a league title. And okay, I'm sure if you dissected those 45, 50 appearances, whatever he kind of accumulated, a lot of them would probably be from the 60th minute onwards, and seeing out the game and almost being that manager on the pitch. But go and do that at least do that for a year and get that send-off that you deserve. Even if it's this time next year, and he goes to, even if he went to like an Aston Villa or a Brighton or somewhere like that, at least go out on a high and get that kind of connection with the fans, because you'll never ever get that back. And we've seen before with exits with huge Liverpool figures. I think of Graham Souness, and you listen to how he talks about his time at Liverpool now and his exit.
You don't remember Souness?
No, but I'm saying when you listen to what he says, he did a really good segment on Sky Sports a few years ago, and he basically said it still kind of eats at him, the way he left. And you think, Henderson in 5-10 years time, when his kids are all grown up, he will have an endless commas in his bank account, but he won't have that one kind of truly unforgettable memory of saying goodbye to a full day at Anfield, because whatever the club's plans are now, as at the time of recording, we haven't had any official announcement from either club. So we don't know if they're preparing an all singing, all dancing farewell speech with his kind of his own letter or a big montage or what. We don't know what the tone is going to be because this is ultimately a player who's walked out 2 weeks before the start of the season. He's left the pre-season camp, and after Liverpool have done all the heavy lifting in the kind of early weeks of the summer, they now face another huge rebuild, which is unthinkable. I mean, they played Chelsea in 15 days, I think it is, which is absolutely mental. So how the club kind of portray that and portray his exit will be really interesting, and certainly we'll be hearing from Klopp this weekend in Singapore, and how he kind of battles that and kind of his take on it. I'm sure he'll be very amicable and say he's been a great servant and such an important figure, but I'm sure there'll be a point of there'll be something inside of him that thinks my captain just walked out on me. Liverpool don't have a vice captain at the minute. Liverpool don't have a captain at the minute, and after doing as I say, a lot of heavy lifting in these kind of early weeks of the summer, you're now looking at him thinking the serious work now needs to begin again, which is really disappointing, because as I think I've said it on a few podcasts in recent days and weeks, is that if you kind of isolate the stuff on the pitch, it's actually been really promising. All the forwards have been scoring. Trent's maybe looking at this new position, and you've got some of the young lads doing well, but all of a sudden now you've got a massive kind of two cogs of your midfield who aren't there. So it is really disappointing. And as I say, the one big thing is that Henderson will never ever have that Anfield send-off. And I just think when Firmino, you look at the fanfare he got in the final 3 months of his Liverpool career after it was announced, I just don't understand how there wasn't a part of Henderson who thought, I want this. I want to be lauded. And I know he's a guy who likes to stay away from the limelight and maybe usher his teammates to the centre stage. But surely, just after everything you've given to Liverpool, I mean, 494 appearances, I think it is. I mean, the fourth highest captain appearances in Liverpool's history. 12 years, nearly half of his life has been spent at Liverpool, and he's just gone out like that. And it just, it leaves such a sour taste, such a poor taste. It's been handled so horrifically by all parties. I'm just really disappointed, to be honest.
I will defend him a little bit in the sense of footballing farewells shouldn't be normal. Like, Liverpool have got into this situation where so many players have left on free transfers in recent years, so they have had those farewells, like Origi and the four we've just seen this summer. But traditionally, players don't go like that. They go into the summer, bids come in, and that's when it happens. Like, we've not had farewells for Sadio Mane, we've not had farewells, if you want to go back, Luis Suarez, Felipe Coutinho, Fernando Torres. They've had to come back for like charity games. Coutinho hasn't come back, he's come back as an opposing player. Like, traditionally, you don't get that. It's just football moves very quickly. And so it's just because we've had these recent memories, you think, well, why hasn't Henderson been able to have
I suppose
part of that?
The flip side of that is, if he, he's 33 years of age, he's moving to this league, he's moving to a team that I guarantee he hadn't heard of 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. I think that is also just that leaves a really bitter taste. If he was to, as I said, move to an Aston Villa, even if he went to the MLS, or even if he went to Serie A or La Liga,
say he sits out his contract. 2 years left?
Yeah,
is it? Sunderland could be Premier League by then. He could go back to his boyhood club.
In
Get the heroes
2025, you can
reception.
probably go and buy Sunderland now. That's the kind of money he's going to be on, which is absolutely mad. But I completely understand Theo's point, and I kind of wrote a similar piece yesterday, saying that these, as great as these exits were, they're ultimately a failure for Liverpool and FSG because they haven't had any return on, all these big investments. Yes, the money is great for Henderson, but it's almost like, he's kind of had his head screwed on for pre-season. He's had this kind of money waft under his nose, and he's thought, I'm out of here, and that is just the bottom line of it. Whether he had an Anfield send-off or not, whether he left to go to Celtic, to any other club in the world or any other league in the world, just after everything he stood for, he's put his head above the parapet, and chose to be an ally for the LGBT plus community. And I just think now you can't pick and choose your moments of when you want to be an ally. If you're an ally for life. Your morals don't change. But for Jordan Henderson, clearly the thing at the moment is there is a valuation of somewhere between 200,000 and 350,000 where his morals change significantly. And I think that above all is the kind of sticking point here, which is a really, really sour look for him.
Absolutely. No, very well said, the pair of you, and it will be interesting to see, as you say, the tone which Liverpool choose to strike in all this. It's not easy for them with how this has played out.